We all have the thoughts, the ones that persist like an itch that you just can't scratch. Those dark machinations that plague each of our primal monkey minds. The desire to channel our ape-like fury into white-hot flames that cleanse the criminal underworld that plagues our society. Ponder it for just one moment. Think about finally doing something about all of the ne'er-do-wellers, purifying the drug-addled underworld that's led by blood-sucking leaders who manipulate their brain-dead underlings into doing their evil biddings, who they themselves are manipulated by ice-cold ambivalent leaders, marionetting them for their own secret objectives. I, of course, am not a madman, but am speaking in parables regarding the protagonist of today's game, the Reaper. The Reaper is a Ryan Gosling-esque figure who stalks the underworld, a relatively simple creature who is the bringer of death to the undead and those from the afterlife. A being whose best friends consist of a talking fireplace who he takes his day-to-day plans from, Karen, the ferryman of the dead and local arms dealer, and a cat. DEADBOLT was produced by Hopoo Games and released in 2016. Hopoo are more famously known for their roguelikes, Risk of Rain 1 and 2. DEADBOLT is quite the deviation from their standard, being a short story game sharing few traits with the widely popular Risk of Rain, and even fewer with Risk of Rain 2. Some games, like Project Zomboid, require a minimum of 30 minutes to break down most of the gameplay mechanics. DEADBOLT's should only take about 15 seconds. You can walk left and right, go up and down stairs, knock on doors, do your best Among Us impression, as well as shoot guns and throw objects. That's it. The beauty of DEADBOLT is in the simplicity of the mechanics, and in turn mastering them, offering, in my opinion, one of the more superbly tight gaming experiences that I've ever had. The skill ceiling for this game is very high, allowing for simple clears of levels like this, compared to clearing the same level in a much more helicopter dick-inspired way. You start this game with a simple 6-shot magnum. When a bullet from this baby is unloaded into some of the smaller enemies' skulls, they'll have an allergic reaction and their heads will explode. The bigger boys, however, have a higher tolerance for bullets and will require frequent and faster doses to have an effect. A key point to success in DEADBOLT is managing your ammo. While you can indeed brutalize your enemies on occasion, more often than not, swift and decisive violence is required to succeed. The game starts slow and mysterious, easing you into the experience and providing little to no context as to what's happening. All you know and need to know at this time is that you're a Reaper, and you have one singular objective, the daily errand that your talking fireplace gives you. Fortunately for us, our fireplace has violent proclivities. Your main objective throughout the game can be boiled down into attempting to earn your assisting the elderly Boy Scout patch by offering the undead scourge that has recently taken a more prominent foothold in the city a helping hand getting back to the afterlife. That is the existence of a Reaper. This is the hub between missions. From here, you can head down to the docks and talk to one of the only other friendly faces you'll encounter, Karen, the aforementioned arms dealer. These weapons are not needed to complete the game. However, some options offer definitive advantages over your default revolver. Additionally, much of the replayability of this game comes from your ability to change weapons, allowing you to approach the same level in various sequences. Now, back to your dark, dingy, dank man cave, you'll notice that it's rather bacheloresque. You've got a chair and a desk. Everything else that you own is in a box. You're the new girl on the block, looking to blow some heads. This is the stupidest thing I've ever... When you're ready for a mission, sit in the chair, start the flame, and let the voice speak to you. You'll be required to do this before each new mission. This brief and convoluted conversation will offer you nuggets of lore and context for what would otherwise come off as mindless reaping. The fireplace will communicate the way that you would expect an otherworldly presence to communicate. Brief, violence adjacent, and poetic. Lucky for us, the Reaper does their best job to provide us with a boiled down sentence or two, offering some method to the madness. Before we start popping off, we should talk about your powers as a Reaper. You have a lighter that lets you go into vents and toilets. That's about it. You can also turn off the lights, and in the dark, no one can see what you're really up to. Additionally, you're basically made of tissue paper. Literally one hit and you're dead. It can be very frustrating, but at the same time incredibly rewarding, since the game rewards that perfection, or, at the very least, spastic reaction. The game is split into 3 main acts, each consisting of 9 individual unique levels. If that doesn't sound too long, you're not wrong. It's fucking short and it's bullshit. Just like one of the main plot devices in the story, the high this game offers is intense, yet fleeting. Initially, you'll just be doing regular Reaper shit. You'll be dealing with the gang known as the Zombie Kings, with a Z. Being a zombie is a result of overdosing on drugs, which some might call symbolism. You'll initially be introduced to 2 enemy types, punks and bullies. Punks, while brain dead, are pretty good shots. If you're on their scouter for more than 1 second, you're dead. Bullies, on the other hand, aren't as dangerous, as they have to sprint towards you to enter CQC distance to damage you. But, just like Snake, if they touch you, you're dead. If you can hit your shots, you'll be fine, but don't forget, you can't shoot through them to kill the punks, but the punks can shoot you through them. One of the bigger boys you'll see hanging around is the Bouncer. This is one of the previously mentioned enemies who has a bit of a bullet tolerance. They can't shoot you from as far away as the punks can, but have roughly 4 times the health and can attack you while you're punching them. My advice is to kill these guys swiftly before they can get the drop on you, because they will if you allow them to. A few missions in, you'll be introduced to a drug called Ash that makes the undead feel like they're alive again. I mean shit. Who can blame them? Life is, it's great. Ash and where it's coming from is one of the mysteries you set out to resolve. A weaker point of this game is the proverbial connective tissue that leads you from one mission to the next. It becomes a regular occurrence and somewhat comedic by the end of the game, but you will consistently find notes or documents with addresses leading you to a location. One such address leads you to the location that introduces you to Hellhounds. These are probably the worst fucking enemy in the game, and I hate them, and they're bullshit, and they fucking suck. These cute little puppers can hear you from further away than the previous enemies, and while they can't open doors, they have the reaction time of your average 12-year-old playing Fortnite. So having them wait on the other side of the next door that you open is inadvisable. Hanging heads, known as sentries, are also introduced in the first act and remain prominent throughout the remainder of the story. They're little snitches. That's their existence. They're a head on a hook meant to alert their comrades at the sight of you. With the reaction time of your average obese raccoon, you should be able to handle these guys with ease. After burning the only fun pastime in the city and turning the zombie population into Swiss cheese, the chapter will culminate to testing your skills developing a reliable sequence to eliminate the leader of the zombies, Roland. Like any respectable drug lord, he's dripped out of his mind and fucking a woman that's far out of his league. And that's actually lore accurate. He's banging a vampire lady who's 100% out of his league. Not only physically, because of the implication, but the vampires kinda hate zombies and think that they're gross. If you feel the need to flex on his crew, there's a cheeky little sledgehammer here. I dare you to clear the entire level using only this. It's satisfying, like nailing in nails, but the heads explode into blood and gore. The Reaper's a kid in a candy shop, but instead of getting candy, he's killing all of the children. Chapter 2 is every Twilight fan's worst nightmare. It's time to find out what the 1,000-year royals are up to. Rather than reveling in the beauty of a vampire, you get to bathe in their filthy, unfaithful blood. Lore accurate once again, but vampires are created by betraying a lover, so there's no need to feel bad for killing a cheater. Most of the enemies you'll encounter during this phase are more or less slightly varied versions of previous enemies, just prettier and better dressed. Initially, you'll encounter an incubus and succubus. These 2 enemies are basically buffed versions of the punk and bully. Specific differences would be that they can both stand on the ceiling and they move a little bit faster. Also, their heads are at a different height than the previous zombies, so any muscle memory you have can go out the window. Other than that, they're still dumb and brain dead. The next member of the vampire entourage we encounter is the bartender. Following previous trends, he's a bigger, paler version of the bouncer. Like your average suburban mom, they rely heavily on the bottle to survive. These bottles, if not destroyed, will allow them to resurrect. Fortunately for us, it's typically on the shelf behind them. One of the more dangerous vampires, the Nightcrawler, will be introduced when you find some undead who've been turned into popsicles. Out of all of the vampires, when they fell out of the ugly tree, they hit the most branches on the way down. Being in the dark won't help you here as they can see in it. Best to sneak up on them and shoot them before they shoot you. Nearing the end of the chapter, you'll be introduced to another enemy faction, the Dredged, more locally known as the Bone Boys. We'll talk about these guys more specifically in a moment. Once again, you'll cap off the chapter by trying to take down the faction leader for the vampires, Madame Stella. She's put herself in a real Voldemort situation, so your sequence building and reaction times will be further tested. After disrupting two of the major undead factions, you set out to see what the Bony Boys are really up to. These spooky, scary skeletons are created by a byproduct of suicide and literally can't die since they'll be resurrected by their local lich. And liches compulsively resurrect people, so they have no choice in this matter either. Following suit with the previous factions, the Dredged have two primary units that you'll encounter: Grunts and Sergeants. Grunts have a rifle that offers them a considerably larger range than previous enemies. Sergeants will sprint at you with their plentiful HP pool and go full Beyblade mode upon reaching you. They can also both hide in the floor, so be careful. Fortunately, for added flavor, the local thickums or technicians are one of the more unique offerings the game has. They have a grenade launcher and will place mines compulsively if alerted. It wasn't until making this video that I realized that their girth wasn't a fat ass with a PH, but rather their pockets are stuffed with grenades. I mean, a skeleton with a fat ass doesn't really make sense, but it sure is funny. As we continue on our pure Mormon crusade, we will run into the previously mentioned liches. While not exactly stout in nature, by reinvigorating their fallen comrades with Baja Blast, they can throw a level off kilter if allowed to resurrect the enemies that you've already killed. As the Reaper does his reaping, the pressure of the Dredged becomes apparent, because they hire demons for some extra muscle. The demons are not undead, but they are the final faction we encounter. They're from somewhere over the river Styx and are known for their mercenary reputation. They specifically mention being afraid of their boss and want to get home ASAP before he notices that they're gone. All three types of demon are thrown at us in a single level: Cardinals, Maidens, and Slaves. The Cardinals and Maidens are really just souped up bullies and punks, but the Slave, after winding up his minigun, can actually shoot through doors, so have an escape plan in place. The game will culminate with you going head to head against a hidden antagonist, revealed briefly in previous missions, Ibizan. Reading between the lines, you can learn that he was once a Reaper and had the heat of the fire, but now is in the cold. And like a little crybaby, he's trying to get back with his ex. Turns out the madman actually did it and created a meat portal to get back to the land of the living. Your battle against him definitely comes across as the biggest boss fight of the game, testing your reaction times, ammo management, and sequence building, capping the game off in a rather fitting way. The story here is enticing to me because it feels organic and remains mysterious. We're only in this world for a brief moment. We get small snippets of info and visual world building, but nothing is really answered, and at the end we're still left with some major questions. But it doesn't really fucking matter, and that's the cool part. There's something intellectually stimulating not having everything airplane spoon-fed into your brain one letter at a time. You can actually use your imagination and powers of reasoning to try and figure out some of the implied things. A decent amount of the storytelling is done via enemy drops and world design. There's no 5 steps to understanding the world of DEADBOLT, but there's enough to make the world feel real and alive. Ultimately, you don't play this game for the story. You play it because you hate yourself and you're a perfectionist. It's not the literal gameplay that's the only enticing part. Don't get me wrong, blasting the undead and painting the walls with their brains will never get old. It's the figuring out what to do that's the fun part. You'll start some levels with no fucking clue on how you're gonna solve this shit, and through trial and error, you'll find a path to success. As I mentioned earlier, there's a high skill ceiling. You can do things slow and steady, but with practice and time, you can pull off some scenes you can imagine only the real death would be able to pull off. The game has a wonderful ramp up in difficulty that offers new mechanics and level layouts to learn. It will spike in difficulty on some levels and you'll want to punch your screen. And then you'll be resurrected and want to blow your brains out when the game tells you to chill. But when you pull out the win, it's euphoric. I also need to admit that I am biased. This game is like crack for me. The gameplay could honestly be anything and I would still love it. The combination of setting, art, and music is just what your boy Ruby needs. Look at this pixel art. It's gorgeously depressing. The characters have personality and life, or death. The city feels bleak and inescapable. The blood splatters make you feel like a menace feared by the monsters that you're killing. Oh, and the fucking music. Listen to this music. Listen to this, and tell me you don't want to go blast some undead and wonder what your purpose in life is. Look, end of the day, this is legit one of my top 10 games of all time. I don't play it all the time, but when I do, it offers me a clean 5 to 10 hours of gameplay. It's impressive to me, given the rather small scale of the game and repetitive concepts, how addicting it is. I'll pick it up and not stop for a week until I perfected it again. The point is, given the simplicity of this game, I think how addicting it is a testament to how clean the gameplay is. It was well received on release, but I think it's critically underplayed, and everyone should at the very least give this masterpiece a shot. And did I mention the fucking music? Perfect, thank you. Yeah, so that's that one done. It was a little bit harder to make than the other video. I hope you enjoyed it. I did enjoy making it. As for rating, I would give this game John Wick 1 out of Super Mario Bros. 64. You guys, you get it. You understand what I'm saying. Also, I stream, believe it or not. You know, nobody streams these days. It's a very unique, special thing when somebody streams. But I do stream, so come check me out. That's the name. You can figure it out. There'll be a link. And if you are interested in supporting me, you know, if you want to bankroll this boy, I don't need it, but I'm not going to complain. Okay, talk to you later. Goodbye.
Hiya, it's your big kitty bitch here, PPP. I love you, bye.